November 23rd, 1944. The Central Mountain Range, Leyte, Philippines. The rain is relentless. It is a warm, suffocating sheet of water that turns the volcanic soil into a black, sucking slurry. Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanamura, 1st Division, Imperial Japanese Army, presses his cheek against the wet bark of a banyan tree, trying to steady his shaking hands. He is 24 years old, but in the gray twilight of the jungle canopy, he looks 50. His cheekbones protrude sharply beneath papery, jaundice yellow skin, and his uniform, once the proud khaki of the Emperor's soldiers, is now a rag hanging off a skeletal frame. Hiroshi closes his eyes, not to fight, but to fight the dizziness. His stomach is a knotted fist of pain. It has been 3 days since his platoon had a full portion of rice. Yesterday they boiled leather straps from their equipment to gnaw on. Today they ate fern roots and a lizard Corporal Sato managed to catch with a bayonet. Below them, down the slick, mud-choked slope of what the Americans call Breakneck Ridge, the enemy is waiting. Lieutenant, a whisper scratches through the sound of the rain. It is Sergeant Ito. He crawls through the undergrowth, his movements silent despite the exhaustion. Ito holds a Type 99 Arisaka rifle, the wood stock mildewed and dark with moisture. The men are ready, but they are weak. If we do not find food tonight, we cannot hold the line tomorrow. Hiroshi nods slowly, wiping rain from his eyes. The Shogo operation, the victory operation, is crumbling. General Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, promised a decisive battle here on Leyte to stop the American return to the Philippines. But the supply ships have been sunk by American submarines and aircraft. The 1st Division is starving to death while fighting one of the most mechanized armies in history. We move at 1900 hours, Hiroshi rasps, his voice dry despite the humidity. Knives and bayonets only. No shots unless we are compromised. We need their supplies more than we need their lives. The objective is a forward American logistics hub, a cluster of tents and dugouts located on a small plateau just 500 yards down the ridge. The Japanese scouts have reported seeing smoke, not the black smoke of artillery, but the white, drifting smoke of field kitchens. Night falls like a hammer. The jungle becomes a wall of absolute blackness. The Japanese soldiers, men who have been reduced to ghosts, begin their descent. They know this terrain better than the Americans ever will. They move with the desperate fluidity of starving wolves. Hiroshi leads the way, gripping his Nambu pistol. The mud tries to pull his split-toed tabi boots off his feet with every step. The descent is agonizingly slow. A slip here means sliding down into the ravine or snapping a twig that would alert the American sentries. As they get closer to the valley floor, the sensory landscape shifts. The smell of rotting vegetation and dysentery, the smell of the Japanese lines, begins to fade. It is replaced by something alien. The scent of diesel fuel, the chemical tang of gun oil, and something else. Something that makes the saliva flood Hiroshi's mouth so suddenly it hurts.
He pauses, signaling for the platoon to halt. Sergeant Ito crawls up beside him, his eyes wide in the gloom. He smells it too. It is a thick, rich aroma that defies the reality of the war they are fighting. To men who have been eating insects and raw rice, the scent is almost hallucinogenic. "Is that," Ito whispers, his voice trembling, "pork?" "Quiet," Hiroshi commands, though his own stomach rumbles violently, a sound that seems louder than a gunshot in the silence. They creep forward, reaching the edge of the perimeter wire. The Americans have been sloppy here. They rely too much on their firepower and their trip flares. Hiroshi spots a gap in the concertina wire, likely cut by a patrol and not yet repaired. Through the rain-streaked darkness, they see the silhouette of the American position. It is not a terrified foxhole. It is a series of large canvas tents with blackout flaps. A generator hums in the distance, a sound of infinite luxury to an army that lacks even batteries for their radios. But what strikes Hiroshi is the casual nature of the enemy. He sees a silhouette of a sentry, lighting a cigarette under his poncho. The flare of the match illuminates a face that isn't gaunt or hollow. The American looks bored, well-fed. Hiroshi signals the advance. They are not here to kill the sentry if they can avoid it. They want the supply tent. They need to steal enough to keep the platoon alive for another week. They belly crawl through the mud, slipping under the wire. The aroma of the food is now overpowering. It smells of sage, fat, and roasted poultry. It brings back memories of festivals back home, of a life before the war, memories that Hiroshi had thought starved out of him. They reach the back of a large dugout, reinforced with sandbags and logs. This is where the smell is coming from. Hiroshi motions for Corporal Sato to slit the canvas with his bayonet. Sato nods, his hands shaking with anticipation. He slices the heavy fabric vertically. The slit opens. Light spills out. Not the dim flickering of a candle, but the bright, steady electric light of a bulb powered by a generator. Hiroshi peers through the slit, expecting to see crates of ammunition or perhaps standard sea rations. What he sees freezes the blood in his veins. Inside the dugout, 3 American officers are sitting around a makeshift table made of ammunition crates. But the table is covered with a white cloth, likely a bedsheet. On it sits a massive golden-brown bird, glistening with grease. There are bowls of red berries, mounds of white potatoes, a loaf of bread. It is a Thanksgiving dinner. Hiroshi stares, his mind unable to process the logistics required to bring a hot roasted turkey to a muddy ridge in the middle of a typhoon in the Philippines. He looks at his own hand, gripping the canvas, thin, dirty, shaking. Then one of the American officers laughs, a loud booming sound, and reaches for a bottle of whiskey. The disparity is not just military, it is total. Hiroshi feels a tap on his shoulder. It is Sato. The corporal is staring through the hole, and tears are streaming down his dirt-caked face. He isn't crying from sadness. He's crying from the sheer, crushing weight of the impossibility of it. "Commander," Sato whispers, his voice broken. "They are eating a feast." Hiroshi grips his pistol. The hunger is gone, replaced by a cold, hollow realization. They haven't just stumbled upon a meal. They have stumbled upon the truth of their defeat. But the instinct to survive overrides the philosophy. We take it. We take it all.
November 23rd, 1944. Behind American lines, Breakneck Ridge. The barrier between two worlds is nothing more than a millimeter of heavy olive-drab canvas. On one side, the torrential misery of the Leyte jungle, where men rot while they breathe. On the other, the warm electric glow of a holiday dinner. Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanamura takes a breath, inhaling the scent of roasted poultry and rain-soaked earth. He glances at Sergeant Ito. The sergeant's eyes are fixed on the turkey with a terrifying intensity. The pupils dilated, the whites wide and feral. There is no need for verbal commands. The hunger commands them. Hiroshi nods. Corporal Sato tears the canvas slit downward, ripping the fabric like the sound of a zipper being violently forced. In the same motion, he steps through, his bayonet leading. Inside the dugout, time seems to fracture. The three American officers freeze. One, a captain with a napkin tucked into his collar, has a fork halfway to his mouth. The scene is so domestic, so utterly normal, that the intrusion of three skeletal, mud-caked figures feels like a hallucination. For a heartbeat, no one moves. The Japanese soldiers look like revenants, their uniforms hanging in tatters, their skin smeared with black mud, their eyes sunken into dark sockets. Then, the spell breaks. The American captain shouts, shoving the table. The heavy ammunition crates screech across the dirt floor. The golden turkey wobbles, but, miraculously, stays upright. The officer on the left reaches for the M1911 pistol holstered on a web belt hanging from a tent pole. He is too slow. Sergeant Ito is upon him with a desperate, lunging speed. There is a brutal, dull thud as the stock of the Arasaka rifle connects with the American's temple. The officer collapses, knocking over a crate of cranberry sauce. Hiroshi levels his Nambu pistol at the captain. "Do not move," he hisses in broken English. The captain freezes, his hands half raised, looking from the pistol to the feral eyes of the starving men surrounding him. He sees the tremor in Hiroshi's hand, not from fear, but from caloric deficiency. He sees the way Corporal Sato is looking not at the Americans, but at the bread rolls scattered on the floor. The third American, a young lieutenant, backs away slowly, hands up. He stammers, his voice high and tight. "Take it, just take the food." Hiroshi motions with the gun barrel. "Get out, go." It is a risk to let them live, but a gunshot would bring the entire American battalion down on their heads. The Americans don't argue. They scramble backward through the main tent flap, diving out into the rain and the night, leaving their weapons and their dinner behind. Now, the Japanese soldiers are alone in the light. The silence that follows is heavy. The generator hums steadily outside. A radio in the corner is playing a soft, crackling tune, something big band, brassy and cheerful. It is surreal. "Eat," Hiroshi whispers. Discipline evaporates. It doesn't break. It simply dissolves under the acid wash of starvation. Corporal Sato drops his rifle and falls to his knees beside the table. He grabs a handful of stuffing, wet with gravy and fat, and shoves it into his mouth. He chokes, coughs, and swallows, his eyes rolling back in his head.
Sergeant Ito bypasses the sides and goes for the bird. He draws his combat knife, intending to carve it, but his hands are shaking too badly. Instead, he grabs a drumstick and twists. The meat is tender. The bone separates with a wet snap. He bites into it, grease running down his chin, staining the stubble of his beard. Hiroshi holsters his pistol, his own hunger, a sharp knife in his gut. He steps to the table, forcing himself to move with dignity, though his knees are water. He picks up a slice of white meat that has fallen onto the ammunition crate. He puts it in his mouth. The flavor is overwhelming. Salt, fat, herbs. It is so rich, it is almost painful. His shrunken stomach spasms, shocked by the sudden intake of dense calories. He has to lean against the tent pole to keep from falling. It tastes like a memory of a world that no longer exists. But as he chews, his eyes scan the table. It isn't just the turkey. He sees a can of cranberry sauce, the metal bright and shiny, no rust. He picks it up. The label is crisp, the colors vibrant, packed in 1944. He sees a pack of Lucky Strike cigarettes, the cellophane wrapper unbroken. He sees a pile of letters next to the captain's plate. He picks up one. The postmark is from Ohio. It is dated November 2nd, 1944. Hiroshi stares at the date. November 2nd. This letter traveled 8,000 miles across an ocean infested with submarines, through a logistics chain of trains, ships, trucks, and mules to arrive here on this God-forsaken ridge in 3 weeks. He says 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, the Japanese army cannot even move a bag of rice from the beachhead to the mountains. Their supply ships are at the bottom of the Ormoc Bay. Their reinforcements are drowning before they reach the shore. Yet the Americans can deliver hot turkey, fresh mail, and cranberry sauce to the front lines as if they were running a grocery delivery service. Sato and Ito are gorging themselves, weeping silently as they eat. They are filling the void in their bellies, but Hiroshi feels a different void opening, a psychological chasm. He realizes then that the war was lost long before they fired a shot on Leyte. It wasn't lost to superior courage or better tactics. It was lost to this, to the ships that bring turkey to a typhoon, to the industrial juggernaut that treats a global war like a logistical exercise. "Sir," Ito gasps, holding out a canteen cup filled with liquid. "Coffee. It's hot. With sugar." Hiroshi takes the cup. The heat radiates into his cold fingers. He looks around the tent. This isn't just a meal. It is a weapon. If his men knew,
If the rest of the battalion knew that the enemy was eating like this while they chewed on leather straps, the will to fight would shatter like glass. Suddenly, a shout from outside cuts through the hum of the generator. Security! Breach at the CP! They're in the tent! The Americans are rallying. The truce of shock is over. Grab what you can carry, Hiroshi barks, snapping back to the soldier he needs to be. We move, now! Sato grabs the rest of the turkey carcass, clutching it to his chest like a newborn child. Ito stuffs his pockets with bread rolls and oranges, fresh oranges. Hiroshi grabs the pack of cigarettes and the letter. He doesn't know why he takes the letter. Perhaps to prove to himself later that he didn't dream this. They slash the back of the tent open wider and dive back into the night. As the cold rain hits Hiroshi's face, washing away the warmth of the tent, the taste of the turkey lingers in his mouth, savory, delicious, and bitter with the knowledge of their impending doom.
November 23rd, 1944. The jungle floor. Breakneck ridge. The jungle explodes into chaotic light. Behind them, the American perimeter is alive. Carbine rounds snap through the bamboo like cracking whips. A flare pops overhead, turning the falling rain into streaks of magnesium-white fire. "Move! Down the ravine!" Hiroshi screams, his voice tearing at his throat. They are running blind. Gravity is the only guide. They slide down the muddy slope, crashing through ferns and tangles of vines that grab at their ankles like tripwires. Corporal Sato is ahead, cradling the turkey carcass against his chest with one arm, his rifle forgotten in the mud behind him. He slips, tumbling end over end, but he curls his body around the bird, taking the impact on his spine against a mahogany root. He grunts, a wet, pained sound, but scrambles up instantly. He would sooner lose a limb than lose the meat. Sergeant Ito is wheezing, the pockets of his tunic bulging with bread rolls that are rapidly turning to dough in the rain. He falls behind a rotting log as a burst of .30 caliber machine gun fire stitches a line of geysers into the mud just above their heads. "Keep moving!" Hiroshi grabs Ito's collar, hauling the older man up. They are not soldiers anymore. They are thieves fleeing a palace. The irony is bitter in Hiroshi's mouth. They are the Imperial Army, the designated conquerors of Asia, running for their lives with stolen poultry. They scrambled down into the deep darkness of the ravine, the noise of the American camp fading into the distance, replaced by the roar of the river. They wade through waist-deep water, the current tugging at their tired legs, trying to wash them out to sea. It takes an hour to navigate back to their own lines, an hour of shivering, terrifying silence. "Halt!" a voice hisses from the darkness ahead, the click of a bolt sliding home. "Yama!" Hiroshi gasps the challenge code. "Kawa!" the response comes weak and shaky. A Japanese sentry steps out from behind a dripping palm frond. It is Private Suzuki. He looks like a corpse that has been left out in the rain. His eyes widen as the three men stumble into the small clearing that serves as the platoon's forward command post, a natural depression under the roots of a giant banyan tree covered with ponchos. The smell arrives before they do. In the confined, stagnant air of the Japanese position, the scent of the roasted turkey is explosive. It cuts through the smell of gangrene, mold, and unwashed bodies. Inside the depression, 6 other men are huddled together for warmth. They are the remnants of the second squad. They are asleep, or perhaps unconscious from hunger, but as Hiroshi and his raiders collapse onto the mud, the smell awakens them. One by one, heads lift, eyes open. Corporal Sato places the turkey on a flat stone in the center of the circle. It is a wreck, battered, muddy on one side, stripped of a drumstick, but to these men it is the most beautiful thing in the world. "What is this?" Private Suzuki whispers, dropping to his knees. He reaches out a hand, trembling, afraid to touch it, afraid it is a fever dream. "Food," Sato sobs, laughing and crying at the same time. "American food." Hiroshi leans back against the tree roots, his chest heaving. "Divide it. Everyone eats, even the sick." The discipline of the Imperial Army holds for exactly 3 seconds. Then it is a feeding frenzy. But it is a quiet, reverent frenzy. There is no fighting. They pass the meat around with shaking hands. Men who haven't seen a piece of protein in a month are suddenly holding handfuls of white meat and stuffing.
Suzuki takes a bite and freezes. He closes his eyes, a tear cutting a clean track through the grime on his cheek. It's sweet," he whispers. "Why is the meat sweet?" "Cranberry," Ito murmurs, pulling a squashed bread roll from his pocket. He tears it in half and hands a piece to a soldier with a bandaged leg. They put fruit on the meat. Hiroshi watches them. He sees the life flooding back into their faces. The gray pallor recedes slightly, replaced by a flush of energy. The calories are hitting their systems like a drug. For a moment, they are not dying men on a lost island. They are human beings again. But as he watches, Hiroshi feels a cold stone settle in his heart. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out the pack of Lucky Strike's cigarettes. He taps one out. It is dry. The cellophane saved it. He lights it with his own lighter, shielding the flame. The tobacco is rich, toasted, smooth. It is infinitely better than the harsh, stinging smoke of the issued Golden Bat cigarettes they ran out of weeks ago. He pulls out the letter. The envelope is slightly damp, but the ink is legible. "My dearest John, the harvest was good this year. Dad fixed the tractor. We're sending you a box with the pie. Please come home safe." Hiroshi reads the English words by the light of the glowing cigarette tip. The harvest was good. Fix the tractor. He looks at his men. They are licking the grease from their fingers. They are smiling for the first time in months. They think this is a victory. They think they stole a march on the enemy. They don't understand what Hiroshi understands. "Lieutenant!" Sergeant Ito crawls over to him, offering a piece of the turkey breast. "You must eat." Hiroshi pushes the meat away gently. "I ate in the tent." He holds up the cigarette pack. "Look at this, Sergeant." "Cigarettes?" "Look at the wrapper," Hiroshi says, his voice flat. "Look at the foil. It is perfect. Not a scratch. It was made in a factory in Virginia. Shipped by train, then by truck, then by ship, then by another truck, then by mule. And it is here. Fresh." Ito looks confused. "So?" "So," Hiroshi says, gesturing to the men gnawing on the turkey bones. "They are fighting an enemy that treats the war like a job. They do not starve. They do not suffer. They simply produce." Hiroshi looks out into the rain. "We are told that our spirit will overcome their steel. But their steel brings them turkey dinners. Our spirit brings us this." He gestures to the mud, the rotting boots, the empty ammunition pouches. Ito lowers the meat.
The joy in his eyes dims. He understands now. The raid was a tactical success, but a strategic revelation. The turkey isn't just food. It is proof of an insurmountable gap. The Americans can afford to waste this. They can afford to have it stolen. It means nothing to them. To the Japanese, it is a miracle. To the Americans, it is Thursday. Let them eat, Hiroshi says softly, flicking ash into a puddle. Let them have this night. Tomorrow the Americans will come looking for us. And they will be angry. And full, Ito adds grimly. Hiroshi nods. And full. From the darkness of the jungle, a twig snaps. The men freeze mid-chew. The turkey is gone, picked clean to the bone in minutes. The feast is over. The reality of Leyte is rushing back in. But the psychological damage is done. As the soldiers lick the last of the grease from their lips, they aren't thinking about the emperor or the empire. They are thinking about the tent, the light, the warmth. They are thinking that maybe, just maybe, it is better to be a prisoner of the Americans than a hero for Japan.
November 24th, 1944. Dawn. The Japanese perimeter. Breakneck Ridge. The sun does not rise on Leyte. The gray merely lightens. The jungle emerges from the darkness like a bruise, purple and black, steaming in the morning heat. Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanamura wakes to the sound of retching. He pushes himself up from the mud. The euphoria of the night before has evaporated, replaced by a cold, sweating sickness. Around the depression under the banyan tree, his men are curled into balls, clutching their stomachs. Private Suzuki is vomiting bile into the ferns. The human body, starved for weeks, does not know how to forgive a sudden influx of grease and protein. The turkey, so sweet and savory in the moment, has turned into a slow poison in their shrunken guts. The platoon is not energized, they are incapacitated. Get up, Hiroshi croaks. He tries to stand, but a sharp cramp bends him double. He fights through it, forcing his spine straight. Check weapons, clear the mud from the actions. The men move like underwater divers, slow and heavy. The crisp alertness that usually comes with dawn stand-to is gone. In its place is a lethargic misery. The memory of the food is no longer a comfort, it is a taunt. The lingering taste of sage in their mouths makes the return to chewing on tree roots unbearable. Sergeant Ito leans against the tree, his face pale green. We should have saved it. We should have rationed it. It would have spoiled in this heat within hours, Hiroshi replies, checking the magazine of his Nambu. We ate. We survived the night. Now we fight. But he knows Ito is right. The feast has done something worse than make them sick. It has made them soft. It has reminded them that they are bodies, not just spirits. Suddenly, a sound tears through the canopy. It is a familiar, terrifying whistle. "Mortars!" Hiroshi screamed. "Cover!" The explosion erupts 20 yards up the slope, showering them with wet earth and shrapnel. Then another, and another. The Americans are walking the rounds down the ravine. They aren't firing blindly. They know exactly where the raiders went. The trail of dropped bread rolls and boot prints in the mud was a road map.
Displace, Hiroshi ordered. Fall back to the secondary line. Move. Usually the squad would vanish into the brush instantly, but today they stumble. Corporal Sato grabs his rifle but leaves his ammunition pouch behind in his haste. Private Suzuki is slow to rise, his eyes glazed with pain and exhaustion. A mortar shell lands dangerously close, the concussion wave knocking Hiroshi into the mud. His ears ring with a high-pitched whine. Through the ringing, he hears a new sound. It isn't an explosion. It is a voice. Amplified, distorted, mechanical. Attention, Japanese soldiers of the 1st Division. We hope you enjoyed the turkey. The voice booms from the American lines, echoing off the valley walls. It is a loudspeaker unit, likely mounted on a truck or a tank near the ridge they raided last night. The Japanese is accented, likely spoken by a Nisei interpreter, but it is perfectly understandable. We hope you enjoyed the turkey. Hiroshi freezes. The psychological precision of the message is more damaging than the shrapnel. There is more, the voice continues, rolling over the terrified squad. We have hot coffee. We have rice. We have medical treatment. You do not need to eat roots. You do not need to die for a lost cause. The firing stops. The silence that follows is heavy, filled only with the dripping of the jungle and the heavy breathing of the Japanese soldiers.
Hiroshi looks at his men. They are not looking at the enemy. They are looking at each other. The shame of the theft has been weaponized. The Americans aren't angry. They are charitable. They are treating the Japanese not as warriors to be feared, but as strays to be fed. It is the ultimate humiliation. Don't listen, Hiroshi hisses, crawling toward them. It is a trick. They will shoot you the moment you stand up. But Private Suzuki is staring up toward the ridge. The look on his face is terrifying. It isn't fear. It is longing. They have rice, Suzuki whispers. Suzuki! Hiroshi draws his sword, the metal scraping loudly against the scabbard. Stand your ground. I can't, Suzuki sobs. He stands up. He isn't holding his rifle. He is holding his hands up, palms open. I can't be hungry anymore. Get down! Sergeant Ito tackles Suzuki just as the crack of a sniper rifle echoes through the valley. A bullet snaps the bamboo inches from where Suzuki's head was a second ago. The American charity has a limit. The come-and-get-it offer is for those who surrender, not those who hesitate. The near miss snaps the spell. The primal fear of death overrides the hunger. Run, Hiroshi commands. They scramble deeper into the jungle, away from the ridge, away from the loudspeaker, away from the deadly promise of a full belly. They slide down mud chutes, tear through thorn bushes, and splash through leech-infested creeks. They run until their lungs burn and their legs give out. They collapse in a bamboo thicket miles away from the American position. The squad is safe, for now. But as Hiroshi looks at them, he sees the damage. They are broken. Before last night, the Americans were demons, monsters to be killed. Now, the Americans are the keepers of the gate to paradise. They are the ones with the turkey. Sergeant Ito crawls to Hiroshi's side. He looks older than he did yesterday. We lost Suzuki, he says quietly. Hiroshi looks up sharply. Was he hit? No, Ito shakes his head. He didn't run with us. When I tackled him, he pushed me away. He stayed behind. Hiroshi closes his eyes. He imagines Suzuki walking back up that hill, hands in the air, trading his honor for a bowl of rice. And the terrifying part, the part Hiroshi locks away in the deepest dark of his mind, is that he understands. He reaches into his pocket. The letter from Ohio is still there, now sodden and dissolving. He crushes it in his fist. "We move to the coast," Hiroshi says, his voice devoid of emotion. "We link up with the 102nd Regiment. We tell them nothing of the food, nothing. And if they ask why we look so sick," Ito asks, "we tell them we fought a demon, and the demon won."
December 5th, 1944. The retreat to Ormoc, Leyte. The jungle has given way to a landscape that resembles the surface of a dead planet. The retreat corridor toward Ormoc Bay, the last lifeline for the Japanese forces on Leyte, is a churned quagmire of mud, abandoned equipment, and corpses. Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanamura marches with his head down. He is no longer leading a platoon. He is leading a funeral procession. Of the 20 men who started the campaign, only 4 remain behind him. Sergeant Ito limps on a swollen purple ankle, using a bamboo staff as a crutch. They have not spoken in 2 days. There is nothing to say. The silence is broken only by the sucking sound of boots in the muck and the distant, rhythmic thumping of American artillery pounding the port city of Ormoc. Every shell that lands is a hammer blow to their only hope of evacuation. As they crest a small rise, the smell hits them. It isn't the smell of turkey. It is the sweet, cloying stench of unburied death on an industrial scale. Before them lies the road to Lemonin. The ditches are lined with the dead, soldiers of the 1st and 102nd Divisions who simply sat down to rest and never stood up again. They look like discarded dolls, their uniforms hanging loosely over rib cages that protrude like bird cages. "Lieutenant," Ito whispers, stopping. He points with his staff. Ahead, a group of soldiers is gathered around a muddy pothole in the road. They are on their hands and knees, scooping brown water into their mouths. They look up as Hiroshi approaches. Their eyes are glassy, the pupils pinpricks. Hiroshi recognizes the insignia on a tattered collar, 102nd Infantry Regiment. These are the reinforcements, the men who were supposed to save them. "Water," one of the soldiers croaks, extending a muddy hand. "Do you have clean water?" Hiroshi instinctively touches his canteen. It is half full, but he does not offer it. In this valley, charity is a death sentence. "No," Hiroshi lies, his voice raspy. "We have nothing." The soldier's gaze lingers on Hiroshi. He sniffs the air, his nose twitching. "You smell," the soldier wheezes, confusion clouding his face. "You smell like oil, like fat." Hiroshi freezes. The grease from the Thanksgiving turkey, the rich animal fat that stained their hands and tunics during the frenzy in the dark, has seeped into the fabric of their uniforms. Even after the rain and the mud, the faint, ghostly scent of roasted meat clings to them. It is a scent that does not exist in the Japanese army.
It is gun oil, Hiroshi snaps, stepping back. Move aside. He pushes past them, his heart hammering against his ribs. He feels like a criminal carrying stolen gold through a plague ward. The gift of the Americans has become a curse. It marks them. They push further down the road, finally reaching a command post situated in the ruins of a nipa hut. A major sits on a crate, studying a map that is disintegrating in the humidity. He is emaciated, his eyes sunk so deep they look like bruises. A katana rests across his knees. Hiroshi snaps to attention, mustering the last of his strength. Lieutenant Tanamura, 1st Division, reporting with remnants of 2nd Platoon. The major looks up slowly. He does not return the salute. He simply stares at Hiroshi's face. Remnants, the major echoes. His voice is a dry rustle. Where is the rest of your unit? Dead, sir, or missing. Hiroshi does not mention Suzuki. He does not mention the surrender. We have no ammunition, the major says flatly. We have no medical supplies, and as of yesterday, the last rice shipment was sunk in the bay. He gestures to a pot boiling over a small fire in the corner. We are boiling leather belts and shoe soles. It provides texture.
Hiroshi looks at the pot. A gray, frothy scum floats on top of the water. Sit, the major commands. Eat. You look like you can still hold a rifle. We need strength for the final charge. The major ladles a cup of the gray sludge and holds it out. Hiroshi stares at the cup. His stomach, still tender from the shock of the rich turkey meat days ago, churns violently. The memory of the cranberry sauce, the white meat, the sweet bread, it overlays the reality of the boiling leather like a cruel transparency. He cannot do it. Thank you, Major, Hiroshi says. But I am not hungry. The silence in the hut is instant and total. The major freezes. Sergeant Ito, standing behind Hiroshi, stops breathing. To be a Japanese soldier on Leyte in December 1944 and claim you are not hungry is an impossibility. It is an admission of madness or something worse. The major slowly lowers the cup. His eyes narrow. Not hungry. I have eaten, sir. Hiroshi stammers, realizing his mistake too late. We found roots in the jungle. The major stands up. He is shaky, but his hand grips the hilt of his sword with lethal firmness. He leans in close to Hiroshi. He smells the faint, alien scent of the turkey grease on Hiroshi's uniform. He smells the lingering aroma of American tobacco smoke that has settled into Hiroshi's hair. Roots, he whispers. Do roots smell like lucky strikes? Hiroshi's blood runs cold. The major knows. He might not know exactly what happened, but he knows Hiroshi has touched the enemy's world. Sir, Ito interjects, his voice desperate. We raided an American supply dump. We took what we could. We destroyed the rest. It is a half-truth, a desperate lifeline. The major stares at them for a long, agonizing minute. He looks at their slightly less hollow cheeks. He looks at the vitality that the single meal gave them, just enough energy to march when others fell. He hates them for it. He hates them because they have tasted the abundance that is killing his army. "Get out," the major whispers. "Sir?" "Get out of my sight," he hisses, sinking back onto his crate. "Go to the perimeter. Dig in. If the Americans come, you will die first. You will pay for your meal with your blood." Hiroshi salutes, his hand trembling. "Hi." They back out of the hut, into the rain. They are alive, but they are pariahs. They have been cast out not just by the enemy, but by their own suffering. As they trudge toward the edge of the perimeter, to the muddy foxholes overlooking the approaching American tanks, Sergeant Ito looks at Hiroshi. "He knew," he says softly. "Yes," Hiroshi replies, watching the American P-38 Lightnings circle overhead like birds of prey. Hiroshi reaches into his pocket. He feels the lighter. He feels the empty cellophane wrapper of the cigarettes. He wants to throw it away, to purge the evidence, but he keeps it. Because in this valley of dead men and boiling leather, that piece of trash is the only thing that feels real. "Dig," Hiroshi orders, dropping to his knees in the mud. They will be here by sunset.
December 6th, 1944. The perimeter of Leyte. The end does not come with a scream. It comes with a rumble. Deep in the mud of his foxhole, Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanamura feels the vibration in his teeth before he hears the sound. It is a low, grinding frequency that travels through the earth, shaking the droplets of water from the fern leaves above his head. "Tanks," Sergeant Ito whispers. He is huddled in the corner of the pit, clutching a Type 99 magnetic mine against his chest. It is a suicide weapon, a turtle-shaped disc of explosives that requires a soldier to run up to a moving tank and attach it to the hull by hand. Hiroshi peeks over the rim of the foxhole. Through the mist, he sees them. Sherman tanks, not one or two, a wall of them. They emerge from the tree line like prehistoric beasts, their 75mm cannons sweeping back and forth. Behind them, waves of American infantry move in a loose skirmish line. What strikes Hiroshi is not their weapons, but their posture. They do not crouch in terror. They do not scurry like starving rats. They move with the upright confidence of men who know the sky belongs to them. "Hold fire," Hiroshi commands, his voice steady. "Wait until they are at the wire." The Japanese defense relies on invisibility. They must wait until the enemy is on top of them to negate the American advantage in artillery. But the Americans are not playing by the rules of 1942. They are not walking blindly into the ambush. The lead tank stops 300 yards away. Its turret swivels slowly. Then the main gun belches a tongue of orange flame. Crack! Thump! The shell slams into the Major's command post 50 yards to Hiroshi's left. The Nipa hut disintegrates. Logs, mud, and the Major himself are erased in a cloud of black smoke and flying debris. The spirit of the warrior has just been vaporized by high explosive chemistry. They aren't assaulting, Ito says, his eyes wide. They are demolishing. The Americans begin to saturate the perimeter. They have so much ammunition that they are firing at suspected targets. Machine gun rounds chew through the jungle foliage, cutting down trees as if they were grass. It is a display of industrial wastefulness that is horrifying to watch. Every belt of ammunition costs money. Every shell requires resources, and they are spending it all just to clear a patch of mud. They are fighting the jungle, Hiroshi murmurs, and they are winning. Suddenly, a tank turns toward their sector. The commander's hatch is open. An American head pops up, helmeted, goggles on. He talks into a microphone, casual, professional. "Ito, get ready," Hiroshi says. He pulls the pin on a grenade, checking the fuse. It is his last one. The tank rolls forward, crushing the undergrowth. The ground shakes violently. The smell of diesel exhaust washes over them. The same smell from the generator at the feast tent. It triggers a Pavlovian response in Hiroshi's gut. For a split second, amidst the terror, he feels hunger. "Ten no haika, banzai!" Ito screams the war cry, scrambling out of the foxhole. He sprints toward the tank, the magnetic mine held high. He is a stick figure against the green armor of the machine. He makes it 10 yards. The tank's coaxial machine gun chatters. A short board burst. Ito jerks as if pulled by invisible wires. He collapses into the mud, the mine slipping from his fingers. He doesn't look heroic. He looks small, a bundle of dirty rags on a wet road. "Ito!" Hiroshi yells, but his voice is drowned out by the roar of the engine. The tank doesn't even slow down. It rolls over Ito's body, pressing him and the mine into the soup of the Leyte soil. The mine does not detonate. It was a dud. Another failure of Japanese manufacturing. Another betrayal of the spirit by the material. Hiroshi is alone. He slumps back into the foxhole. The war is over. Not in a year, not in a month. It is over now. A shadow falls across the hole. Hiroshi looks up. Standing on the lip of the foxhole is an American soldier. He is huge, tall, broad-shouldered, his uniform clean compared to Hiroshi's rags. He holds a Thompson submachine gun leveled at Hiroshi's chest. Hiroshi freezes. His hand is near his Nambu pistol, but he doesn't reach for it. He looks at the American's face. The American is chewing gum. Rhythmic, casual chewing. "Hey!" the American shouts over his shoulder to his squad. "Got a live one here!" Hiroshi expects the bullet. He closes his eyes, waiting for the flash. He thinks of the letter from Ohio. The harvest was good. But the bullet doesn't come. "Hands up, buddy! Come on, up!"
Hiroshi opens his eyes. The American isn't killing him. He is annoyed. He looks like a man who wants to finish his shift and go home. Slowly, painfully, Hiroshi stands. He raises his hands. The shame burns hotter than the fever in his blood. To be captured is the ultimate disgrace. But to be captured by a man chewing gum is a farce. The American motions with the gun. Out of the hole, move it. Hiroshi climbs out of the hole. The battlefield is a ruin. Japanese dead litter the ground, broken by the avalanche of steel. The American tanks are already moving past, indifferent to the destruction, pushing towards the port. Another American soldier walks up. He is carrying a flamethrower on his back, but he has a cigarette dangling from his lips. A lucky strike. "Skinny little guy, ain't he?" the second soldier says, looking Hiroshi up and down. "Yeah, well, they're all starving," the first soldier says. He reaches into his webbing pouch. Hiroshi flinches, expecting a grenade. Instead, the American pulls out a chocolate bar, a Hershey's tropical bar. He tears the wrapper with his teeth and holds it out. "Here," the soldier grunts. "Eat." Hiroshi stares at the chocolate. It is dark, dense, melting slightly in the heat. "Eat," the soldier repeats, shoving it towards Hiroshi's chest. Hiroshi takes it. His hands are covered in Ito's blood and the mud of the foxhole. He brings the chocolate to his mouth. He bites. The sugar hits him like a physical blow. It is sweet, chalky, and incredibly rich. Tears prick his eyes. Not from gratitude, but from the sheer, crushing weight of the gesture. They are not just defeating him. They are feeding him. They have so much food that they can afford to feed the enemy they just spent an hour trying to kill. The American soldier watches him chew, then shrugs. "Come on, let's get him to the rear. Maybe the chow line is still open." The chow line. Hiroshi stumbles forward, pushed gently by the barrel of the gun. He walks past the crushed remains of his platoon. He walks past the crater where the major died. He walks towards the American rear, chewing the chocolate of the conqueror. He realizes then that the turkey in the tent was not an anomaly. It was the standard. The feast he risked his life for, the meal that cost Sergeant Ito his life, was just Tuesday for these men. The Japanese Empire fought with the spirit of the samurai. The Americans fought with the logic of a supermarket. And the supermarket won.
December 10th, 1944. Tacloban Airstrip, Leyte. The war is still raging in the mountains, a distant rumble of thunder that no longer concerns Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanamura. He sits inside a wire enclosure on the edge of the Tacloban airfield, his knees pulled to his chest. He is wearing fresh fatigue trousers, American issue, too large for his emaciated frame, and a gray blanket is draped over his shoulders. He is no longer a soldier of the Emperor. He is prisoner of war number 44 1029. Around him, hundreds of other Japanese prisoners sit in similar states of shock. They are not bound. There are few guards. There's no need for them. The fence keeps them in, but it is what lies beyond the fence that keeps them paralyzed. Hiroshi stares out at the Leyte Gulf. The water is gone. In its place is steel. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of ships fill the horizon. Liberty ships, LSTs, destroyers, carriers, hospital ships. They are packed so tightly it looks as if one could walk from Leyte to Samar without touching the water. Cranes swing back and forth like the pendulums of a clock, lifting net after net of cargo. Jeeps, trucks, tanks, bulldozers, crates of ammunition, crates of medicine, crates of mail, and food, mountains of it. Hiroshi watches a forklift struggle with a pallet that tips over and spilling its contents onto the crushed coral of the airstrip. It isn't ammunition. It isn't vital radio parts. It is toilet paper. Thousands of rolls of white, clean toilet paper. Hiroshi closes his eyes. In the jungle, men had died of dysentery because they had nothing to clean themselves with but leaves and mud. Here, the Americans have shipped an entire forest worth of paper across the largest ocean on Earth just for comfort. "Tanamura-san," a whisper. Hiroshi turns. It is a man from the 102nd Regiment, a soldier he saw starving in the mud just days ago. The man is holding a tray, a metal tray with compartments. "They are serving lunch," the soldier says, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Look!" Hiroshi looks at the tray. It is not a feast. It is standard American military chow. A scoop of powdered eggs, a slab of Spam, a mound of white rice, a peach half in syrup. "They apologize," the soldier whispers, leaning in. "The cook, he apologized. He said they are out of fresh meat until the next convoy docks at 1400 hours. He said we have to eat Spam." Hiroshi laughs. It is a dry, cracking sound that hurts his throat. They apologized. He takes the tray. The weight of it is heavy in his hands. He looks back at the ocean of ships. He thinks of the Thanksgiving turkey. He thinks of the letter from Ohio. He thinks of Sergeant Ito, crushed into the mud by a tank that was likely built in Detroit 3 months ago, shipped here in 2, and will be replaced by another tomorrow. The Japanese High Command had told them that the Americans were soft, that they were a mongrel nation of shopkeepers who had no stomach for war. They were told that the Yamato Spirit, the Seishin, would shatter the American will. Hiroshi picks up his spoon. He cuts the peach half. It is bright orange, sweet, and perfect. They were wrong. The Americans were not soft. They were simply rich. They had turned war into an engineering problem, and they had solved it with an assembly line that stretched from the factories of the Midwest to the foxholes of the Pacific. Hiroshi takes a bite of the peach. It tastes like defeat. It tastes like the future. He looks at the soldier beside him. "Eat," Hiroshi says softly. "The war is over." "For us?" the soldier asks.
For Japan, Hiroshi replies, looking at the armada that blackens the sea. They just don't know it yet. As the sun climbs higher, illuminating the endless convoy of supplies that keeps coming and coming and coming, Hiroshi Tanamura realizes the brutal truth. He didn't lose to a better warrior. He lost to a Thanksgiving dinner. He lost to a logistic system that could put a hot bird on a table in hell. He eats the rest of his meal in silence, not weeping for himself, but for the empire that thought it could fight an avalanche with a sword.